several hints around, if you had been paying attention, that Dr. Tim was not here tonight, mainly being the fact that you only have a single half-page piece of paper for your notes. Those are usually a good hint that it is me teaching tonight instead of Dr. Tim. Stacy, if you'll turn on the house lights as well. Thank you. Dr. Tim is actually in New Orleans for a couple of meetings and a seminar later in the week. So he is progressing along in his master's, counseling master's program. And so he had some face-to-face meetings and a seminar he had to attend this week. So he is down there. So we're going to be taking a break from Harmony of the Gospels and kind of jumping back. So if you notice, I didn't have a bumper for the book we're actually going to be in, but it just happens to be before Judges, and so we are pre-Judges tonight. So if you'll turn with me to Joshua chapter 22, that's where we will be. And so we're going to go back into this period that we've already spent some time in and around. And so the story that we're looking at takes place immediately before a bunch of the stuff that happens in Judges. So what happens, if you remember, at the end of Joshua 23 and 24 is Joshua's last speech, last presentation, last message to the people before he dies. And Judges starts with the death of Joshua. And so Joshua 22, if you actually look at Joshua 23:1, it says many years after Joshua 22, Joshua gave his last speech to Israel. And so what we're looking at is something that happened immediately before all the stuff that happened in Judges. But before we start reading, let's kind of remind ourselves where we are in the timeline of Israel. That Joshua occurs post-Exodus. So this is after Joshua starts after the wandering in the wilderness with the death of Moses, and picks up there with the death of Moses and the battle of Jericho, and talks about everything that happened since the death of Moses all the way through the death of Joshua. And so it begins with the death of Moses and the conquering of Jericho, and ends with the conquering of the Promised Land and the death of Joshua. Check 1, 2. Okay, there, I'm still there. So this is post-Exodus, but kind of pre- and mid-Promised Land conquering that we're going to be looking at. And this story happens at the very end. It's one of the last things that happens in the book of Joshua. So the conquest had basically wrapped up, and armies of Israel are returning to their homes. So let's read Joshua 22. We're just going to read verse 9 to start with. So the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh returned and departed with the children of Israel departed from the children of Israel at Shiloh, which is in the land of Canaan, to go to the country of Gilead, to the land of their possession, which they had attained according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So we have 2.5 tribes of Israel, Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, that are departing the children of Israel and returning to their homes in Gilead. So the question we may have to ask is, why are we making this distinction between these two groups of tribes? Well, this division goes all the way back to Numbers 32. So keep your place there marked in Joshua 22, and we'll turn back to Numbers 32. We're going to spend a little bit of time back here in Numbers 32. So Numbers 32, if you remember in Numbers 31, Israel had just defeated the Midianites and had all of this land. They had just finished conquering the Midianites. They had all of this land. And so Numbers 32 verse 1 says, the children of Reuben, children of Gad, and a great multitude of livestock, and when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that indeed was a place for livestock. So the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came to Moses and to Eleazar the priest and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, hey, these guys, the country which the Lord, this is verse 4, the country which the Lord defeated before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. Therefore, if we found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Do not take us over the Jordan." So you had these 2.5 tribes that looked at this land and says, this land that we just conquered is perfect for all of our animals. But there's just one small problem. It's on the wrong side of the Jordan. It's not Canaan. It's not part of the promised land. And so check out, I want you to look at this map as we look at the route that Israel took from their captivity in Egypt to get to where they are, kind of right where this story takes place. And so they leave. Number one up there in the top left-hand corner is Ramses. It's the city in Egypt that they left. They came down the Sinai Peninsula. At the very bottom down here, which got cut off, is Mount Sinai, number 8, if your eyes are that good. Number 8 is Mount Sinai. Eric, here's your map, by the way. You're welcome. I did this just for you. So they came all the way down, and this is kind of the wilderness, and so then they come up to Ezion-Geber, and that's when they sent the spies, and they kind of wander around the wilderness of Zin and Paran and Kadesh Barnea. That's the 40 years, and then they take eastern wilderness up and come in just above the Dead Sea on the eastern side. Now, y'all are probably a lot smarter than me, but when I envisioned Israel moving from Egypt to Canaan, I always kind of assumed they were coming in from the southwest, because I have no idea where the River Jordan runs. I'm going to be honest. I was like, Jordan runs somewhere, it forms a border, they crossed it, that's about all I got. And they crossed it, in my mind, from west to east. Nay. They came up on the east side. Gilead is up on that east side, north of the Dead Sea and east of the Dead Sea. And so when they crossed the Jordan, they crossed it from the east to the west. So Manasseh, the half-tribe of Manasseh, Reuben, and Gad all stayed on the east side of the Jordan. Canaan was situated between the Jordan and the Mediterranean. That was Canaan. So it was from the west. So they were always moving from east to west. Keep this in mind, okay? Gad, Reuben, and half-tribe of Manasseh were on the east side. Now, so Moses said, hey, guys, this isn't the land that God promised us. I've got some reservations here. I think what's going on is that you just don't want to fight. Look at verses 6 and 7. And Moses said to the children of Israel, to the children of Gad and children of Reuben, shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Now you will discourage the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord has given them. So his first thought was, hey, you just don't want to fight. Then his second thought was, you're going to discourage everyone else from wanting to fight. Look at verses 8 and 9. Thus your fathers did when we sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. So Kadesh Barnea, you right there is number 12. It's the one that's rogue out here on the top. When that's where they sent the spies from, and when they came back, they said, no, we can't take this land. Everybody's giants, and it's not a good place. And so this is what caused the wandering for the 40 years in the wilderness. And they said, hey, you're doing the same thing. Since you want to stay on this side, you're going to discourage everybody else from wanting to cross over and take the land that God has given them. And then verse 15, your disobedience will destroy the entire nation. So verse 15, for if you turn away from following him, he will once again leave them in the wilderness, and you will destroy all these people. Your disobedience, if you stay here on the east side of the Jordan, not going over into the promised land, your disobedience, your unwillingness to fight, your unwillingness to take the land of promise is going to discourage the rest of the people. God's going to curse us again with going out into the wilderness, and you are going to be responsible for the destruction of people. The 2.5 tribes, they responded. They said, no. That's not our plan at all. Our plan is to leave our flocks and our family here and go with y'all to take the promised land. Verses 17 and 18. But we will ourselves will be armed, ready to go before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones will dwell in the fortified city because the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. And then Moses relented. And he said, if you do what you say you're going to do, if you actually go fight, then you can keep this land. You have to go fight. And if you do, then you can keep this land. If you don't, you're going to have to come into Canaan with us. Verses 29 and 30 tells us that, and it says, and Moses said to them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben cross over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before the Lord, and the land is subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Gilead as a possession. But if they do not cross over armed with you, they shall have a possession among you in the land of Canaan. It says if they go help you take the land, great. They can have their possession over here. If they don't, they're going to have to come over and take possession in the land of Canaan. So now let's go back to Joshua 22. That kind of sets up the story here of why after the conquering of Canaan, they are headed back to Gilead because they've done what they said they were going to do. And since they did what they said they were going to do, Moses has granted them the land on the other side, on the east side of the Jordan. So that leaves us with Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh on the east, and the other 9.5 tribes on the west. So Gad, Reuben, and the half-tribe of Manasseh on the east, and the other 9.5 tribes on the west. Verse 10. And when they came to the region of the Jordan, which is in the land of Canaan, the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh built an altar there by the Jordan, a great, impressive altar. Now the children of Israel heard someone say, behold, the children of Reuben, children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar on the frontier of the land of Canaan in the region of Jordan on the children of Israel's side. So here we have a tale of two altars. It was the best of altars. It was the worst of altars. So, tale of two cities joke? Okay, great. Glad some of you all are well-versed in Charles Dickens. I want you to notice something really important, but it comes down to a single phrase at the end of verse 11. It says they built this, behold, the children of Reuben, children of Gad, and half-tribe of Manasseh have built an altar on the frontier land of Canaan in the region of the Jordan on the children of Israel's side. On the children of Israel's side. What's significant about that phrase? Well, first of all, they're all the children of Israel. Now, we've seen it from Numbers 32, that even when they were beginning to figure out and to try to decide that they were going to live on the other side of the Jordan, you began to see this separation of, we will go with the children of Israel into Canaan, and when the children of Israel had taken their land, when we help the children of Israel take their land, then we will return. So there begins to get this little bit of division here, where you begin to see these Transjordanian tribes, meaning tribes on the other side of the Jordan, these Transjordanian tribes beginning to separate themselves just a little bit. But honestly, they're all children of Israel. And so this is a false distinction here that's being made. This is, hey, they built it on the children of Israel's side. But when they built it on the children of Israel's side, that means they built it on the west side. Which side do they live on? They live on the east side. Keep that in mind. Okay, so they built their altar. It says they built it on the children of Israel's side. They built it on our side of the river. But they live on the other side of the river. Keep that in mind. It's going to be important coming up here in just a little bit. Let's pick up in verse 12. And when the children of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the children of Israel gathered together at Shiloh to go to war against them. Then the children of Israel sent Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the children of Reuben, to the children of Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and into the land of Gilead. And with him 10 rulers, one ruler from each of the chief houses of every tribe of Israel, and each one was the head of the house of his father among the divisions of Israel. So immediately upon hearing about this altar, the other tribes gear up and get ready for war. They're like, what is going on here? We're going to get in a little bit more into the context in a little bit. But unlike everything we saw in the book of Judges, Israel is zealous for the holiness of the Lord, zealous for the righteousness of his people. This isn't like in Judges chapter 20, if you can remember back when we studied that one, when the Levite and this concubine, and he sent her to the 12 tribes or the other 11 tribes of Israel to kind of spur up and stir up their righteous anger against this thing that had happened, and not all of them responded. This isn't that. As soon as they heard, they were ready to go to war. He didn't have to stir them up. He didn't have to call them into battle. As soon as they heard, they all assembled at Shiloh, ready to go and protect the righteousness. They were zealous for the Lord, because they are still obeying the commands of God. Look at Deuteronomy 13, 12 through 15. If you hear someone in one of your cities, which the Lord gives you to dwell in, saying, corrupt men have gone out from you, and enticing the inhabitants of their city, saying, let us go and serve other gods, which you have not known, then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently. And if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination was committed among you, you shall surely strike the inhabitants of that city with the edge of the sword, utterly destroying it, and all that is in it, and its livestock with the edge of the sword. So this was their first concern. Are they worshiping idols? If they are, they got to go. So concern number one, are they worshiping idols? But the other piece, the other concern is Leviticus 17, 8, and 9. Also, you shall say to them, whatever man of the house of Israel or of the strangers who dwell among you, who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice and does not bring it to the house of the tabernacle of meeting to offer it to the Lord, that man shall be cut off from his people. So the first concern was, are they worshiping idols? The second concern was they build another altar. Because there's only supposed to be one altar, and that's supposed to be at the tent of meeting, at the tabernacle. And if there's any other altars, they're supposed to go bye-bye. They're not supposed to exist. You're not supposed to offer sacrifices anywhere but at the temple of meeting. And yet now we have a tale of two altars. One at the temple of meeting, and this one that the Transjordanian tribe built. So in the Israelites' mind, there were only two choices. The Transjordanian tribes were either sacrificing to idols or sacrificing to God, but the wrong way. But instead of going to war, immediately they got the facts. Remember what Deuteronomy 13 said. Verse 14 says this, then you shall inquire, search out, and ask diligently, and then if it is indeed true and certain that such an abomination was committed, then you shall surely strike the inhabitants of that city. Go find out if it's true first. Go figure out the facts. So they went to get the facts. And they sent Phinehas and 10 tribal leaders. Remember, there are 9.5 tribes that are living in Canaan, living in the promised land. And you can't send half a leader, so you got to send 10. You round up. So they sent Phinehas and 10 leaders of the tribes of Israel. Why Phinehas? Why is this guy important? Well, Phinehas has a history of dealing with idolatry in the nation. Let's jump back, if you'll turn with me, to Numbers 25. We're going to go back in time just a little bit more. Once again, Numbers 25. In verse 1 through 3, it says this, now Israel remained in the acacia grove, and the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. They invited the people to their sacrifices of their gods, and the people ate and bowed down to their gods. So Israel was joined to Baal of Peor, and the anger of the Lord was roused against Israel. This was the curse of Balaam. If you remember the story of Balaam, remember Balak sent to Balaam and says, hey, I want you to come curse the people of Israel. And Balaam goes, no, thank you. He says, no, come on. Come curse these people for me. I'll give you a lot of money. And Balaam says, okay, fine. And so he goes and he tries to curse them. He tries to curse them like 3 or 4 times. And it always comes out as a blessing. But when he couldn't curse them as a prophet, he goes to Balak and says, hey, why don't you just have your women go entice them to follow your gods? That way y'all will be of the same people, you'll be following the same gods, and they won't bother you anymore. Now, we don't see that here in verse 25, or actually in 23 and 24, which is the story of Balaam. We actually see this over in Numbers 31, verse 16, where it says, look, these women caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to trespass against the Lord in the incident of Peor, and there was a plague among the congregation of the Lord. So the plan worked, and many of the Israelites began to worship Baal, and so God sent a plague as a punishment. Let's go back to 25, verses 6 through 8. And indeed, one of the children of Israel came and presented to his brethren a Midianite woman in the sight of Moses and in the sight of all the congregation of the children of Israel who were weeping at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Now when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose from among the congregation, took a javelin in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her body. So the plague was stopped among the children of Israel. Phinehas was the one that stopped this outbreak of adultery. He was the one that stepped up and battled the idolatry directly. He was the one that stopped the plague. And so Phinehas had the respect of the people with his zeal for God. And he had experience in driving out idolatry out of Israel. And so this is the man they send to figure out if idolatry is happening at this new altar. Let's go back to Joshua 22. So now we have the setup, right? We know why these tribes are on the other side of the Jordan. We know what's going on, kind of why Israel is so zealous to protect this altar, to have questions about this altar, and to be willing to go and destroy their people. And we know why they're sending Phinehas to go and investigate this. Phinehas particularly. Pick up in verse 15. Then they came to the children of Reuben, the children of Gad, and the other half-tribe of Manasseh, to the land of Gilead, and they spoke with them, saying, thus says the whole congregation of the Lord, what treachery is this that you have committed against the God of Israel? To turn away this day from following the Lord is that you have built for yourselves an altar that you might rebel this day against the Lord? Is the iniquity of Peor not enough for us, for which we are not cleansed to this day, although there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord? But that you must turn away this day from following the Lord. And it shall be, if you rebel today against the Lord, that tomorrow he will be angry with the whole congregation of Israel. Nevertheless, if the land of your possession is unclean, then cross over to the land of possession of the Lord, where the Lord's tabernacle stands, and take possession among us. But do not rebel against the Lord, nor rebel against us by building up yourselves an altar besides the altar of the Lord our God. Did not Achan, the son of Zerah, commit a trespass in the accursed thing, and wrath fell on the congregation of Israel, and the man did not perish alone in his iniquity? He comes in and basically asks, he goes, guys, what are you doing? Don't you remember that horrible plague I had to stop at Peor? And all the consequences, all the idolatry that is still going on, all the consequences that we're still suffering, even from that? Don't you know if you do this, God's going to be angry with all of us? That sounds like Numbers 32 again. Remember, it says, Moses said, hey, look, if you do this, if you stay on the other side, you're going to curse us all to the wilderness. You're going to be responsible for the destruction of us all. And Phinehas is coming in and saying, if you do this, you're going to be responsible for the destruction of us all. Don't you remember what happened to Achan and the spoils he kept from Jericho and the how that caused us to lose at the Battle of Ai? Look how explicit Phinehas was in verse 20. He says, and that man did not perish alone in his iniquity. He's reminding them that their actions affect the entire nation. And he offers them a way out. If you look back at verse 19, it says, look, if this land is causing you to sin, come join us. Come to our side of the river. We'll give you part of our inheritance to save you from idolatry. Remember, the land had already been divided up. They'd already gone through the bloody conflict of conquering it. And to have all of these people coming over the River Jordan would have meant lost territory for everybody. But they said, we are willing to make that sacrifice for your purity. We're willing to make that sacrifice to keep you from idolatry. Look at their response. Verse 22. The Lord God of gods, the Lord God of gods, He knows. And let Israel itself know, if it is rebellion or if it is treachery against the Lord, do not save us this day. If we have built for ourselves an altar to turn from following the Lord, or if to offer on it burnt offerings or grain offerings, or if to offer peace offerings on it, let the Lord Himself require an account. But in fact, we have done it for fear, for a reason, saying in time to come, your descendants may speak to our descendants, saying, what have you to do with the Lord God of Israel? For the Lord has made the Jordan a border between you and us. You children of Reuben, you children of Gad, you have no part in this land. You have no part in this Lord. So your descendants would make our descendants cease fearing the Lord. Therefore we said, let us now prepare to build ourselves an altar, not for burnt offerings, not for sacrifice, but that it may be a witness between you and us and our generations after us, that we may perform the service of the Lord before Him with our burnt offerings, with our sacrifices, with our peace offerings, that your descendants may not come to our descendants in time to say, you have no part in the Lord. Pardon me, hold on. Therefore, we said that it will be, when they say this to us or to our generations in time to come, that we may say, here is the replica of the altar of the Lord which our fathers made. Therefore, not for burnt offerings or nor for sacrifices, but as a witness between you and us. Far be it from us that we should rebel against the Lord and turn from following the Lord this day, to build an altar for burnt offerings, for grain offerings, or for sacrifices, besides the altar of the Lord our God, which is before His tabernacle. Their response is, yeah, we built it, but we weren't going to use it. It's not so much an altar as a reminder. It's not really for us. It's a reminder for you that we are a part of you, that we serve the same God, that we have the right to worship at the tabernacle. And the way we did that is by building an altar of the thing that you have at the tabernacle that says, hey, look, we built this. It looks like that. Therefore, we should still have access to that. They were afraid because of the Jordan that they would be cut off. And honestly, they had a point. Because remember that phrase from verse 11, that the children of Israel. Is a phrase that didn't include them. The way it was spoken of in Numbers 32 was the children of Israel and the Transjordanian tribes. They weren't spoken of as the 12 tribes. They had kind of already begun to see this division brewing. There was already a distinction being made between the Promised Land tribes and the Transjordanian tribes. Now, that's an easy thing to say, that they weren't going to use it. I mean, yeah, we have this thing that's super useful, but we aren't actually going to use it. There are two pieces of information that give credibility to that thought. In verse 28, they call it a replica. Usually when you call something a replica, it means you're not going to use it. You know it's not authentic. You know it's not the right thing, so you know you're not going to use it. Replicas are usually not made to be used in the same way that the original was. Secondly, it's on the wrong side. They call it a replica, but more importantly, it's on the wrong side. Remember, they live on the east side, but they built it on the west side, on the children of Israel side. And if they're worried that they aren't going to have the access to the tabernacle because the Jordan's there, then how are they going to get to this altar that they built on the other side when the Jordan's still there? It would make sense if they built it on their side. Hey, y'all can see it from your side. And this just kind of shows us, no, we built it on your side to remind you we can still see it, but we can't use it because it's on the wrong side. And if you ever come in and say that this Jordan is the barrier, how are we going to get to that thing to use it? You can't. And the chapter ends, this seems to satisfy Phinehas and the other tribes. And they don't go to war, but they leave and let them be. Let's look at some lessons we should take from this. We should be zealous for the Lord. Israel was zealous for the righteousness of the Lord. Then when they heard about this purported idolatry, when they heard about this breaking of the sacred covenants, that they were ready to go to war. And we should be willing to do whatever it takes to protect the righteousness of our physical family and our faith family. We talked about this a few weeks ago in our Sunday night small group about the ferocity we are to have when it comes to dealing with false teachers and false prophets. 1 John says, or 2 John, I think it's 1 John, says, we're not even to let them in our house. We're not even supposed to greet them. It's a fierceness and a ferocity that Israel showed in protecting the integrity of the righteousness of their family. Do we have that same zeal? Do we have that same ferocity? Are we willing to make the same sacrifices? But they sought the facts. So we have the zeal, but we seek the facts. Phinehas didn't go in sword swinging thinking he knew exactly what was going on. Before he was willing to do damage to his family, before he was willing to do damage to his nation, he made sure he understood what was going on. Now, he was willing to do whatever it took to preserve the righteousness of the family, but he wanted to resolve it without conflict first. He wanted to check the facts. So he rolls in. And he says, look, how can you do this? And if you are doing this, and this is a problem, and it's this land that's causing you the problem, I'm going to give you a way out. So even though this may be going on, I want to still rescue you and give you deliverance into the promised land. We're going to offer up some of our land. We're going to offer up some of our territory. If this land is what's causing this, come be with us. He tried to resolve it without conflict. He tried to get the facts first. But we should be willing to sacrifice for purity. That's what he was saying when he said, look, if this land is causing you to be impure, we're going to sacrifice for your purity. And we're going to give you some of our land. And y'all are big tribes. But we're going to give you some of our land. If this is what's causing it, we're willing to sacrifice for your purity. Even at significant cost to themselves, they wanted to make sure that their brothers were living righteously. 1 Corinthians 10:24 puts it this way: let no one seek his own, but each one the other's well-being. Phinehas and the tribes of Israel weren't seeking their own. They were seeking the well-being of their brothers and sisters across the Jordan. Hebrews 13:16 says, "But do not forget to do good and to share, for with such sacrifices God is well pleased." Whether it was the land or the emotional toil of cutting off their family, either side, they says, hey, look, if it's this land that's causing you the problem, we're willing to give you land. But if you're dead set on doing this thing, we're going to cut you off. And we will make the sacrifice of dealing with that emotional toll of having to slaughter our brothers and sisters for the purity and the righteousness of Christ. We will make the sacrifice to our own emotional health for the righteousness of Jesus Christ. Can we say the same? That we are willing to do whatever it takes for purity? Do we care enough about the purity of ourselves or our families to go against the culture around us? To not know about the popular shows or the popular movies or music or books? To not know the latest gossip? To prioritize our relationship with Christ above all else? Do we care enough to be weird for Jesus? What was the outcome? They got their facts, but what was the outcome? We should be willing to change in the face of facts. As soon as they got the facts, it was done. There was no grudge. There wasn't probation. They weren't watched more carefully. They weren't given a limited seat at the table. Once they were found innocent, they were fully restored into the family. How do we react when we're faced with the facts? And we might change our mind, but do we change our attitude? Do we hold grudges? Do we keep people at a distance? Yeah, well, I know that thing wasn't true, but, well, it might have been true. And so I don't know if I can, I just don't know. Last thing I want to look at a little more at the aftermath. Notice what happens. Nothing. After all this, nothing. They take their word and they go home. Awesome. But look at verse 24 again. But in fact, we have done it for fear, for a reason. There's no record of the Promised Land tribes addressing this concern. The 2.5 tribes said, hey, look, we're really worried that y'all are going to try to cut us out. And the 9.5 tribes said, oh, okay. Well, as long as you aren't worshiping idols, we'll see y'all. They sought peace, but they allowed fear, they allowed sin to remain. When a brother comes to us with a concern, is it love to ignore them and say, well, it's just as long as you aren't sinning? I know you may be suffering, but as long as you're not sinning, be well, brother. It's not love. Here's the thing. You see I use the word sin there instead of the word fear. Because remember Leviticus 17, 8, and 9? This is, there shouldn't be another altar in the Promised Land. Judges 2:2, when we get to there, says, every altar you come up upon, destroy it. There's commands to tear down the altars. The only altar should be the one at the tent of meeting, and yet they leave this one. But it's just a replica. It's an altar. It's still an altar. And there were given explicit instructions for there to only be one altar. And we have no record of the Lord being consulted in the building or the leaving of this altar, either one. We don't have any record of anybody consulting God as to what was to happen before or after this. There was peace, but the sin remained. Gad and Reuben and Manasseh did the wrong thing for the right reason, but it was still wrong. The wrong thing can be done for the right reason, but it's still wrong. Remember Uzzah, when they were moving the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem, and they get to the threshing floor, and they stumble, and Uzzah reaches out to keep the Ark of the Covenant from falling, and he touches the Ark of the Covenant to keep it from falling, which is forbidden, and he dies. He did the wrong thing. He was great reason, but the wrong thing. Uzzah was keeping the altar from falling, but it was still sin. A good reason can still require correction. Phinehas and the tribes had come to him and be like, hey, look, why did you do this? And they lay it out and says, hey, this is the reason. They're like, hey, that's a really good reason. We still got to tear down the altar. Still not supposed to be here. We can address, and we're going to address your concerns, but we still got to tear down the altar because it's still not supposed to be here. Is a lie to save someone's feelings still a lie? Is gossip disguised as a prayer request still gossip? Is criticism without the offer of help to implement that thing, to implement that change, is it actually just plain criticism? All of these things are like giving money to a person you know is a junkie and really hoping they don't go use it for drugs. You're enabling them. It's a great reason, but it's the wrong thing. And so a good reason can still require correction. The 9.5 tribes wanted peace, and so they didn't address the issue. But peace should never be prioritized over purity. When we normalize being quiet over bringing correction, we have failed our friends and our family. We're not discipling, we're enabling. But remember that example I just gave about implementing criticism without offering to help, or coming and recognizing the problem and offering a solution but not offering to help. Or somebody coming to you, Israel, the Transjordanian tribes coming to Israel and saying, this is our issue, this is our fear. But the children of Israel not being willing to help. We can't be guerrilla disciples. We can't just throw wisdom. We can't just throw training. We just can't throw correction at someone and then disappear back into the forest. We have to be willing to walk alongside them through it. The Transjordanian tribes did themselves a huge disservice by staying on the wrong side of the Jordan, because they had to do it alone. They had to do it surrounded by enemies. They had to do it without the help or the encouragement of the rest of the nation of Israel. And so the end of their story is the same ending of the story of the other 7.5 tribes of the northern kingdom. They were taken into exile with the rest of the northern kingdom of Israel, and they're considered to be 2.5 of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. There's a lot of debate as to whether it was God's will for them to cross or not cross. But anytime we look at these debates is to say what was God's will, we look at the outcomes. When we walk with other believers, when we are zealous for each other's righteousness, when we're willing to sacrifice for and to seek out purity and peace, but never peace over purity, and we walk through the tough time with them, that's when we have a much better chance of continuing to walk and grow in the Lord. That's when we have a much better chance of growing disciples, because we are corrected and encouraged. That is what the church is for. And I hope that you find someone here to have deep relationships with, that help you walk through the tough times. And I hope that you're willing to develop the kind of relationships where you are willing to walk through fear and the mess of life with somebody else. That's my prayer for you this week. That God would show up and show you where you need to step into those relationships, or that where we need to step up in existing relationships. Because we are called to spur one another on towards love and good deeds, like it says in Hebrews 10:24. Thank you so much if you joined us online. We hope to see you Sunday. Dr. Tim will be back, and we'll be continuing our abiding in provision. We are excited about that.